There we
You'll
go.
give me just a moment. There's a few different groups, so I'm just trying to find it.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find here we go. I was just trying to find coaching for coaches in the drop down. Okay, perfect. Oh, that's strange. Okay, well, it looks like it's saying that does not have permission to create live video in the group, so I'll have to troubleshoot that for next time, but we can just roll with it. But okay, perfect. So sorry about that. All right, well, welcome everyone to First Wednesdays. Each First Wednesday call is uploaded publicly to Gretchen Heido's YouTube channel. In today's call, we're going to be talking about creating high-value coaching packages. First Wednesdays are for any coach who wants to build their coaching business. Please feel free to invite other coaches to our Coaching for Coaches community. You can do that by inviting them to the Facebook group or inviting them to a First Wednesday in the future. And then I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Gretchen.
Well, hello, coaches. Here we are in February, the month of love, right? Maybe. Catherine, hi. It's so good to see you. So everybody, Catherine and I, our kids went to school together and now our kids are graduating. We've known each other a very long time, but this is the first time I've seen her here.
Very long time. It's nice to see you online instead of
It's nice to see you. Usually we see each other walking around the neighborhood very fast. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. You know, when I was thinking about the topic for this month, one of the things that felt really important was helping all of you with your packages. There have been so many questions about packages recently that have been emailed to me and different questions on the Coaching for Coaches Facebook group that I thought, why don't we get into it? You know, and so tonight, just like every other time that I'm here with you all on Coaching for Coaches, I want you to be interactive. Go ahead and feel like you can ask your questions. No question is a silly question. This is the way that we all learn. And let's see if we can help you to either fine tune, build, or at least get a spark on your packages tonight. Sound good? Okay, so show of hands, how many of you already have a coaching package? Okay, some of you have a coaching package. Okay, how many of you, and I like this, it's like, maybe I do. How many of you have a coaching program? Maybe that feels different than the word package. Okay, so we're thinking about it, right? It's like, what is your offering, basically? That's what you want to be thinking about, because here's the thing, in the world of coaching, the difference between a good package and a great package is often in the details. And one of the things that you all need to know, because I would like it if you could start having connection calls with potential clients and those sorts of things, is what are you recommending? When a client asks you, how do you work, or what would we do together, you want to be able to give your highest recommendation, but you will only be able to do that if you know the details. And so I know for me, when I first started out in this coaching world, I had a basic idea of what my program would be. And it was 90 days, 9 sessions. And that was enough of a quote unquote package. You know, that was enough to have. It was enough of a program to have. And when I started, I think I did that one for $1,800. I was brand new. Then it was $2,100. Then it was $24. Then it was $25. Then I think I got it to 3,000, and then I stopped doing that particular program or package because I went to 6 months instead. And so the thing to know about any package or program that you have is that they're one and the same. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the difference between a program and a package. because it can really fumble people up, coaches up, when we're talking about it. When I asked who has a program, some of you raised your hand, and who has a package, some of you raised your hand. They can be one and the same. So a program is a duration of time for X amount of sessions. Now, a program might also be something that you do with a group that has more of a curriculum. So when you're thinking about it with your potential clients, you want to know what you are enrolling them in. Maybe you have both of those things. Maybe you have a group program with different information that you're giving during different weeks for, 3, 6 months. And maybe you have an individual program. All right. Same thing with a package. When we're thinking about your package, a lot of time this is when you're doing the individual coaching. You're thinking about how much time am I spending with a person? How long is it? But at the middle of everything with both of these, it's what's the transformation? And so in individual coaching, we often do not know what we are going to be doing each session. And what do I mean by that? We know that we're coaching them. We know that they're coming with their own topic that they want to work on. We know that they have an umbrella of goals. We know that we're going to be doing something to help them support those goals. When you're doing straight coaching, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, it's always client driven. So there are not modules that you're doing. It's not week 1, we cover this. In session 2, we cover that. In session 6, we do this thing. It's you ask the client, what would you like to be coached on? The client lets you know. You find out, in this session, what would you like to create around that topic? And then what's the form of measurement that you're going to use to know that you've achieved that? And that's what we're doing with these packages. Now, in the world of individual coaching, package and program can be interchanged. So when I'm talking to a potential client who's an individual, and we get to the part where they ask me, how do you work and what should we do together? And I give my highest recommendation. I'll say my highest recommendation is, and let's just say I'm talking about something that I do for 6 months. I would say my 6-month program. Now, sometimes for new coaches, they get nervous with this because what they're thinking is that suddenly they need to have curriculum. It doesn't need to be that way when you're doing something with individuals. When you have a group and you're teaching, not so much coaching, but you've gone into teaching mode, typically there is some sort of a curriculum that is going to go with it. So let me just pause there. Let me hear what you're getting. I want to make sure that everybody's tracking and that we're understanding the terminology between packages, programs, and how you might use those, just so that we can have a really good and effective conversation tonight. Hope.
Well, I am in the middle of writing a curriculum for I realize it's a program for life skills for teens. So now I'm getting that whole different picture. It's really clear. I wouldn't have known the difference, but I see that the program can be very different than the package.
That's it. It really can be, and so when we're thinking about it, just remember the packages and programs, you can use it interchangeably with individuals, but when you're enrolling a group, usually there's something that you're teaching or some kind of curriculum. Good. Anyone else have a comment there?
I think for me, because I do have a group, I think it would be more effective to have a curriculum, because I think it would shift, one, the timing of it, and two, the expectation, I think, a little bit. So for me, it's given me some ideas about how I can have a finite amount of time for a group rather than a group that never stops, which might lose momentum. So
now, Catherine, maybe. So I saw your hand, Diana. I'm going to ask you to pause just for 1 minute. Let me answer this, and then we'll get to you. Maybe. So sometimes with a group, they're ongoing and they're subscription based and people can jump in and out, and that's completely fine. So it really just depends. Sometimes with a group, They're topic-based versus curriculum-based. So all of this is what we're going to talk about tonight. But when we're saying program, you could have a group program that's just topic-based. It doesn't have a lot of pre-curriculum. It's something that you know you're going to talk about. There's probably some objectives that are going to go with it, and it's ongoing. To your point, there are some people who like to have a start and a stop date. That requires something different when it comes to sales. Everyone needs to enroll at the same time in order for that to be effective. So again, these are the pieces that we can take a look at. Yeah. Diana, I saw your hand.
I'm wondering if with a group that is kind of curriculum based, or where you have objectives along with the measurement and the the goal, and you have a goal along in measurement, is that still coaching, or is that coaching consulting?
So if it's
Teaching
something,
them something is what I'm saying.
that's what I was going to say. If it's curriculum based, it's usually teaching and coaching most of the time. Now, there could be some consulting in it. It would depend on what your curriculum is. But for, let's say, my Stairway to Six program, I'm teaching. I'm teaching the entire time, but I'm also coaching. I will pull someone out and spot coach. You've seen me do it. I do it in these as well, that right now what we're doing is teaching, but this is part of something else that I have, and so let's talk even about coaching for coaches. This is more of a community, which is yet another level that you can add in. So to your question though, Diana, a lot of times what that becomes is teaching and you can fill in the blank of what the and is depending on what you're doing. Okay. Anyone else have questions here before we dive into it? Let's create something tonight. Okay, so high value coaching packages are not usually just about the sessions themselves, but they're about the overall experience and the transformation that they offer. So that's something that we're going to talk about as well, is that when we think of something that is high value, it's not always the price point. Okay, the high value should always be in the transformation that's going to occur. So many times people will give out a freebie. That is not high value. We don't really expect a lot of transformation to occur from a worksheet that somebody's going to download, right? That can be an intro point for them to get to know you better, to maybe be a feeder into one of your programs. But it's not going to be high value. It's valuable, but I've never had a worksheet that changed my life, right? Even including my own book that I wrote, like, it's great, and you need a little more than just the worksheet. So you want to think about, what is the transformation that I want to have occur? So in a program like Stairway to Six, the transformation that I want to have occur is, I want coaches who come to it who aren't sure about the enrollment process or where to find clients, to learn those things, and by the end of it, to have earned back their investment on the program, and to know all of the basics, and to feel confident and comfortable in doing what it takes to have high level conversion connection calls. So that's the transformation. In my Break Free to Bold program with women, they come to me with an idea of who they are. They know something is missing, and by the end, we have debunked all of the labels, rules, narratives, and beliefs, and they're stepping into their new self. So that's the transformation that occurs. So remember, with your program, with your package, even individual, we are selling the transformation. It's the hope, it's the piece that's missing for them. So this is where you're thinking about the pain points. This is where you're thinking about, what's the problem that either this group of people or the individuals who will come to me are having, that I need to solve. Okay. Now, you might do that through curriculum. You might do that by straight coaching. You might do it with some resources as well, but you're thinking about all of those things. Like, what are the pieces that are going to create the conditions needed in order to be able to help that person transform. So many times with, let's say, evergreen programs where people are just watching videos, while those are helpful for information, they typically aren't very helpful for transformation. And the reason for that is there's no real interaction. Unless there's something where it's like, watch this video, and then the person has what they call office hours or something like that, and you can bring your questions. But when it's something that's static, just know that yes, there can be transformation. It probably will not be as powerful as having this kind of a component. And the reason that's important is because it has to do with your pricing, and it has to do with the value of what you are going to be giving to this group or individual. All right, let me just pause there. Questions? What are you hearing?
I love that. I mean, we've had a podcast for 7 years, and I think we just hit 1.5 million downloads, which I'm excited about. But
Oh.
Information does, oh, thank you. Oh, look at all the balloons. Thank you. But
Amazing.
it ties into that, like, you can only get so much information. Like that's our marketing point, sort of, is like, that's how people get to know us. But unless you're actually doing the work, like, you can just keep listening and not actually make any changes. So I love that distinction between information and transformation, that passive absorption versus like the actual journey that they're going on. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I like what you said there about passive absorption, because that's what it is, and we're expecting people to, for the videos to hold the attention. We know that they're not. Like, even those of us who are great at these different things, I'm not actually saying that I am. I just put myself in those of us. I don't do videos because I don't find myself to be very good at it. And that's not the kind of learner that I am. So for me, I have to have someone that I can interact with to hold my attention. Or else I could be emailing at the same time. Suddenly I'm up thinking it's time to vacuum and the video's still playing, and then I forgot I even bought the thing, and I'm not doing it. So you want it to be something where the person really can engage. There needs to be some sort of accountability built in to whatever your program or package is to ensure the transformation. Now let's do a ... there. What it doesn't mean is that you're responsible for the transformation. High value coaching always has the ownership on the participant, the coachee, the person in the group or the program. The coach, facilitator, teacher, whatever role you're going to be stepping into, it's our job to create that space, to create good curriculum if we're going to have curriculum, and to have effective coaching conversations. So let's say that it's a coaching package program that you're doing with somebody. If you do not hold the frame and you do not get topic outcome measurement, and you do not do a midpoint check or ask about the actions that they're going to commit to and what their takeaway is, probably the coaching isn't going to be effective. It becomes more conversation instead of transformation. And this happens when we lean out of our professional self and into our social self. And remember, you're going to love your clients. You're going to love the people in your groups. They wouldn't be attracted to you if they weren't your people. Like all of you that come when I'm like, hey, Mark, it's because I'm genuinely happy to see you. I like you. I like that you're here. You probably like me too, or you wouldn't keep coming. So it's easy to get social. But remember, to help your clients with transformation, you have to stay in your most professional self. I'm going to pause there for some feedback. That social self versus professional self sometimes is a bit of a tipping point for people, or there's questions around it.
No, just another great point, especially with long-term relationships, making sure that even if there is a lot of similarity in background, or I've experienced that myself, making sure that it's focused on the client and their responsibility to actually make the change and not just show up. Like, I have a woman who I'm coaching who she could just talk forever, and I have to just keep pulling her back to it. And I think my enabling her rambling at all or her kind of divergence. Like that's the friend part, not the professional part. So it's a good reminder to like respect my time and her desire for transformation. So
Yes, and good point there. So remember, one of the things here that happens is, especially when we have long-term commitments with our clients and we've worked with them for 6 months, a year, however long it is, we do know things about them and we do like them. And it can be easy to fall into that. Now, it's not that I don't want you to like them, but I want you to remember that this person is paying you to have a professional conversation. They're not paying you to talk about hiking, even though I love hiking. You know, they're not paying you for that. They really need you to help them to stay on track. It is never the coachee or group member's responsibility to hold the space. It is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to help them to move forward. And it's their responsibility to show up prepared enough emotionally, spiritually, and mentally to be able to do that. Okay, so this is the partnership piece. Diana, go ahead.
So part of you talked about that frame for being in in your professional self, that the difference is that the coach holds the frame. And so I get that there's the setting goals, like no matter how chatty you get, you have to set goals. You have to ask, like, how will we know? Like, what will this do for you, or how will we know when you've achieved this? Checking in midpoint. And I think that there's just like a reflection on wins, like either at the end of a session, at the end of the series. What about when folks fall short? I think that when you like somebody and when you get too social, for me, it's easy to not hold them accountable, and that holding accountable could feel to the other person like a level of criticism. Like, I don't want to be the coach that doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and then therefore we don't get to the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So what are are there elements that I'm missing? The setting goals, checking in midpoint, reflecting on wins. What am I missing, and what to do when there aren't wins?
Sure. And we'll talk about this for just a few minutes because I do want to make sure we stay on the packages piece of this. But this is really the coaching frame. And this is what the ICF guidelines indicate that are important. You get the topic for the session. That's the question, what would you like to work on today? Then you're going to ask for the outcome. By the end of this 45 minutes, what would you like to achieve around this topic? So it's not something that's going to happen after the session. It's something that's going to happen in session. And then you ask for the measurement. How will you know you've achieved that? Coach, 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 your midpoint check sounds like, I know you said you wanted to work on X and that you'd like to achieve Y. Are you getting what you need? So that's already a form of accountability. Are you getting what you need? They can say yes or no. Either way, your next question is, what's still missing? What's still missing? You know, and so that's a great question to ask. What's still missing? From there, coach, 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 at the end, you ask them, based on what we've talked about today, what would you like to commit to between now and our next session? And then you ask them the takeaway, what have you learned? Now, at the beginning of the next session, it's really not, hi, how are you? It's, how did it go with whatever their committed action was? If they say they didn't do it, you ask, what got in the way? That way you're not being critical. It's just what got in the way. You don't ask, why didn't you do it? Because that would sound critical. So we ask the open-ended questions to really help them to continue going. Did I answer it for you, Diana?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on.
Do you ever just use the terms social frame and professional frame with the client? Say, hey, I want to keep us in a professional frame right now because you are paying me and we'll move this along, and just call it out and name it?
No, I just don't. I just make sure that I'm not being social. The social thing can only happen if I'm social. They can try to be social and I can smile and then say, okay, what do you have for me today? What are we going to work on?
Okay.
So you don't even have to do any of that. That actually can feel a little bit confronting. And so instead it's just, okay, what are we working on today?
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so with that, what's important about what we just went over is one, that's what you need to be doing in all of your coaching sessions, all right? That's probably what you learned at every single coaching school would be my guess, is some sort of version of what I just laid out. Everyone teaches it a little bit differently, but what we just went over is how the ICF core competencies get checked off at your very basic level for a successful coaching session. And when I say successful, successful is what leads to high value coaching. And so if I'm staying in that professional self, keeping the right coaching frame, that's considered a high value package, a high value program. It will be the same thing in your group. Now, in groups, it can get a little bit complicated. There's a lot of personalities in groups. There are a lot of people in groups, and there's typically a lot of group dynamic that has the opportunity of showing up, right? So we all come with our own lens of life, the way that we see things. We come with our own stories, we come with our own ideas. So if I happen to be a person who has a critical voice, I'm going to hear everything critical in the group. I'm probably going to participate in a critical way. If I'm someone that's passive, I might think that the group is stepping on me or that I never get a turn. If I'm someone who sees myself as aggressive, I might overly talk. So remember, when you're dealing with groups, as much as we just went through the frame of an individual coaching session, there are some really good ways to have good group coaching sessions or group programs, depending if you're teaching curriculum. One of the first things that you want to do is have agreements with the group. It's something that at the beginning, whatever that jump off point is for the group program, you want to make sure that verbally, because nobody reads the contract, all they read is when they have to pay. That's it. They don't, and even half the time they don't even read that. And they're texting you, how much do I have to pay? And you're like, it's in the contract. Don't count on people reading, is what I'm saying. What you want to do is have a set group agreement. You have them read it first on their own, they sign it, but as a group together, you go through it. And it's like, okay, so these are our group agreements. And you go through what's important. You know, we're going to give everybody the space to be heard. We want to make sure that we know that in groups, sometimes things feel triggering. If you feel triggered, you want to tell them and have an agreement about what to do about that. And you'll come up with what that is on your own. Sometimes in the middle of groups, after it's been 3 or 4 sessions in, let's say a 12-week thing, you find out who your most talkative one is, and you find out who your Debbie Downer is. And there's always both, you know, the one who's just blah, 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 and they're great. And then there's always the one that's like, I'm no good, I can't do it. And you have to raise the energy. So you're going to find that out too. And there will be some things that you will do to support your group. So one of the group agreements that I have is that any kind of language or beliefs that are not serving the greatest good to the individual or to the group, I'm going to challenge. Can we have an agreement that I do that? And so I have one person in one of my groups right now. I mean, every time she really has a lot of negativity to say about herself, and I'll say, let's just pause right there. I can hear your old narrative taking over. What's a more empowering thought? Now, if we didn't have the agreement, that could feel completely confronting. Like, why is she putting me on the spot? That's really vulnerable, but we have the agreement. So have very strong agreements. You also want to have agreements in groups about being on time. If you want them on camera, what the rules are about the chat. These are things that are important. So think about that as well, because that holds your frame and the professionalism, and it will help them with their transformation. So let me pause there. What questions do you have or comments about agreements?
I think that making that agreement around challenging or addressing things that don't serve the greater good is really important, and it's helpful for me because the topics that I usually coach around are triggering topics. And so, I mean, people come to me because they need transformation around things that are loaded. So that's good. And if you have an agreement, you can stay out of the person social and be professional. because
That's
we've hit the agreement. I never thought of it that way. I mean, I've always done it, but I never thought about how it also is part of the professional framework. So that was helpful.
good. Anyone else have any questions or comments about agreements?
I think for me, and I love the idea about setting the like my own needs and professionalism. Something that I do is I ask the question, are you looking for feedback? Are you venting and just need a space to say something? Do you want to be coached on this, or do you want like a cute kitten gif because you need just to say something? But I like the idea of, if I do a new group, like a group agreement that everyone buys into, because you're right, people don't read the group
Ever.
rules. So
Yeah. And here's something else for everyone. You can change the group agreements at any time. So that's one of the agreements in my groups, is that if something isn't working or we feel like something else would better serve us, can we have the agreement that we can add on agreements? And so, Catherine, it might be that you decide with whatever group you have going now that you decide that, hey, everyone, we're going to talk about having some new agreements. Yeah. Now, agreements are something that I do with individual clients as well. I do this during the first paid coaching session because, again, they didn't read the contract. I go over what coaching is. I go over what they can expect of me, and I go over what I'm going to expect of them. And I also have the agreement that the results that they get are 100% their responsibility. Because what happens if there's any other kind of agreement is I overcoach, I work too hard. I try to force the client's transformation instead of allowing the client to rise to the occasion. So this is something that is in my agreements that I talk about verbally, that, hey, and as we work together, one of our agreements needs to be that you are 100% responsible for your results. And what that means is if you need more or less of something, I need you to ask. And if I need more or less of something from you, I would like to have the permission to be able to ask. And we talk through the agreements. It's not just me monologuing them of agreement 1, agreement 2. We have some conversation about it. And this way, there's no question later. If someone comes to you and they're like, it's not quite working, thank you for bringing it up, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well as a coach. It's part of your agreements. They were going to bring it up. If they didn't bring it up and they're trying to tell you in session 7 out of 9, that's on them. We had an agreement. What kept you from keeping your part of the agreement? So these are just things that will help you with the high value. High value means going further than other coaches do, because most people are what is considered conflict adverse. And it's not that having agreements is a conflict, but it can feel confrontational, even though it isn't. And so what I'm always doing with everyone that I'm working with is stepping into my highest level of professionalism, from the very first touch to the email that they're going to get from me, to the whole breadcrumb process to get them from here to there to the transformation. It's always high level. I'm not going to sink into, oh, and I had a bad day and then the house flooded. That's not their business. That's not what they're paying me for. And if you do that, you are going to, what is it called? You're going to coalesce your energy with theirs. And then the problem is that they're going to want to help you. Oh, well, I only live 3 blocks away. I know you're in Los Angeles. Do you want me to come over with my water vacuum and help? And maybe you do. Maybe you're having a bad day and you're like, you know what? I really do want you to come over with your water vacuum and help. I'm tired. I'm sick of this. And now you have a friend who's paying you. And that's no good. And so you have to stay in your most professional self. Here's something else to know, and this will add to high value. Let's say that you had a coaching session and you know that you were off as the coach. You know that you were distracted, you were thinking about whatever you were thinking about, and you weren't really engaged, or, you know, we're off sometimes, we're humans. You can tell the person at the end of the session or an email or the next time you see them that, you know what, I was off today. And this one's on me. Let's schedule this session again, or let's add another session at the end of this. That one's on me. And most of the time they'll say, oh, I thought it was a great session. It still adds high value, because what it means is that you were willing to be really honest about not being 100% on. So I've only had to do that a few times, but there are times where it's like, well, I was just totally off and I didn't know it. you know, or I did know it, either they brought it up or I brought it up, just be willing to say, let's have another session. This one's on me. High value. How would you feel if a coach, especially high caliber coach, said to you, you know what, I was off. Let me gift that one. Tell me your feedback on that.
I would trust them more, you
Mhm.
know, and really think you as my coach are looking out for my well-being and not some weird thing about having to be perfect or ego or anything.
Yeah.
I think
It-
it's the difference between customer satisfaction and customer delight. In business school, we talked about customer delight. At Nordstrom was known for this, you know, just going like this surprise delight. And then you're like, wow, that's what gets the high net promoter scores and all this kind of thing. So that's exactly what that is from my perspective.
I love that with customer delight. That's exactly what it is. I call it client astonishment. We're
Yeah.
always looking for ways to astonish our clients. So this is the next part. And then Layla, I do see your question in the chat. I'll answer that in just a second. Client astonishment is another thing that adds high value. So when you're thinking about, you know, your group, your program, the transformation, what can you do to astonish your client? It's not necessarily in the contract. It's just something that you were doing because you've thought of them. It's something that might be extra. So a lot of times in my group programs, I might have a guest speaker or a bonus session that was never on the calendar. I might send them a book or something that is that's going to help with their learning, another resource to their learning that wasn't there. I might send gifts. I really love giving gifts. So almost everyone in my programs ends up with some kind of a present at one point or another, just because that's part of my personality. Sometimes I will even offer their spouse, their coworker, their whomever a session. So if I have a client who is saying, my spouse is really struggling right now with X, Y, and Z, I'll tell them, oh, have them schedule with me. I'm happy to gift them 2 sessions. Let's work this to the end for them. Because I know that in the end, it helps my client. They're blown away. And the reason I do that is because you don't hire me to just see you every other week. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I really become a part of your life when I'm coaching with you. And so I'm here to help you with all of those areas. If coaching your coworker for 2 sessions would make your life easier and make you look like a superstar, I'm here for it. It's fine. And when people get caught up in like, why would you give that for free? It's not free. This is the cost of business. This is the cost of repeat business. This is the cost of referrals. This is it. You never have to do a networking group again if you do this sort of a thing. You never need to, because people want to work with you over and over and over, and they want anyone who needs a coach to work with you. Okay, so let's see this question. So Layla says, how do clients respond to the piece about results are 100% their responsibility? Do you have some examples to share? The first time I said this, I was nervous. I was like, oh man, what if this is the part where they're like, what do you mean? I want my money back. Listen, if a client is not willing to take 100% responsibility for their results, who do they think should be responsible? And so I have had clients ask me, well, what does that mean? And we talk about it. Most of them, though, just say, of course, it's up to me. And so I will help them to figure out how to get the results. So some of the things that I ask of them too is that after our coaching session, can we have an agreement that you have 30 minutes to an hour to implement the learning right away? After you coach, if you have a good coach, you're on fire. You have all these things you want to go and do. And if you don't have until the end of the day or 2 days later, you've lost it. You're probably just not going to do it. It doesn't feel as urgent. So that's what I mean by 100% responsible. Are you willing to do the follow through that it takes? Are you willing to tell me if you need something that's different than what I'm doing? Are you willing to find outside resources to help you in the areas that coaching's not going to touch? So this is what it means to be 100% responsible for your own results. It's very different than consulting. In consulting, the consultant's pretty responsible for the results. Thank God we don't have to do that. That's not the job. And this is where coaches get burnt out and overwork, is when they're trying to be responsible for their clients' results. It's a lot like pulling someone through a keyhole. Layla, does that answer your question? Okay. love the thumbs. All right. When I'm thinking about this with all of you, when it comes to these packages and these programs, something else that I really want you to be thinking of is if you had to describe the transformation piece about a program that you were doing, individual coaching, group program, whatever it might be, you need to be able to say it in a way that's understandable. So over the weekend, I just got to do this workshop for the Business Accelerator. And one of the things we really focused on was stories. You always should have a way to illustrate what working with you, what your program, what your package looks like. So just because I have the Stairway to Six coming up, if someone asks me what is Stairway to Six, I will tell them it's for coaches who love to coach, but they haven't yet mastered the art of business development. It really picks up where coaching school stops. So coaching school is about coaching skills. Stairway to Six is all about how do I find clients? What do I say to clients? How do I create my packages? What do I do? They get it. It's like, okay, it's right there. So you have to have something so that when you're talking about it, they understand why they would be a good fit. And anytime you can, something else that is very high value is an experience. So let's say that an individual comes to you to work with you, but they're on the fence because of your pricing. And just know this, it's never really because of pricing. People make it about pricing. It's because they're still not sure about themselves and they don't understand the program enough. Be willing to gift an experience. So one of my requirements for working with any individual client is that I coach them first. Now, again, people get caught up on this. You do that for free? No, this is the cost of doing business over and over again so that people feel really good about their buying decisions. After you have coached them, that is high value. They know that you are giving it to them. They know that your time is valuable. People actually feel a little bit strange accepting gifts. They want to pay you for it, but they show up ready for that session. So you're showing your value. You're seeing if they are ready. Both things work. When it comes to a program that's more group focused, if you can have a workshop, individual conversation if you need to, you want to do that. You want people to have the experience. So whenever I'm going to run a program, I always make sure that I have a workshop that happens prior to the program starting. I want the people to feel what it's like to be in a group with me having the facilitated conversation and some of the other people that are likely to join. It's the best way to describe is for the person to actually be there and to have an experience. Thumbs up. We good here? Any questions? Comments? All right. Just want to make sure that I'm, if you need me and I'm not seeing you like do this or something. Okay. Something else that can be highly valuable and create high value is resources. For your groups and your individuals, what resources do you have? Now, it doesn't have to mean that you know everything about everything, but I have a whole list of articles, podcasts, books, all sorts of things in the categories of the type of people that I work with. So if it's coaches, I know which top books they should read. I know the podcast they should be listening to. I know the client relations management system they should use. I know, I know these things. And so I already have it ready to go. If it's my women leaders, I know what they struggle with. I have those resources for them as well. So it just depends on who it is, but have those readily available. And you don't have to have a lot. It can just be a few, but these are things that you supplement. So you don't have to say as part of my coaching package, I'm going to send these things to you. Just surprise them with it. Same thing with your groups. Any kind of resources that you can have to supplement the learning, it's good, and everyone learns differently too. So with your groups and with your individuals, you want to know what kind of a learner are they, or have enough in there that whether it's a person that they need to practice in real time to do it, that's how they learn. They're an experienced person, have pieces of that in there. Maybe it's someone who needs to read, have things in there they can read. Maybe they need to fill it out. Maybe they're auditory and they need to rewatch it and hear it again. Have those different elements of the learning. In my individual coaching, I ask my clients, do you want to record the session so that you can go back to it later? So we have a lot of resources available, but it's about getting to know your client in a very deep way. I do not recommend programs for individual clients that go through modules 1 through 12. Too much comes up off the cuff. And if you're trying to make them learn about whatever it is for module 3 of your however long program, but they really want to talk about something else, that's going to be hard. So instead, what I like to say is, you know, from my book program, the one I did for Break Free to Bold, I do that as a group and I do it individually. We go through it, we do the work, but if something goes off of the way I see it or the stage that we were on, stage 8 of 10, it's okay. And I build in time for that so that it's always client focused. As the individual coaching goes, it needs to be client focused. With the groups, it's group focused. We have to get that learning out there. So that's the difference and the caveat from individual to group.
Mhm. Gretchen, I'm not sure if I know what you mean by, of course I know what modules are, but I'm not sure what you mean by modules for individuals. In other words, would these modules be something that they are doing on their own? You're saying to avoid?
So let's talk about it. It could be. So I don't do any of that, but some coaches they call it a program, and it will take them through some sort of material. Week 1, they do this. Week 2, they do this. Week 3, they do this. For me, and from what I've seen, that creates less value than having the approach of this is supplemental material that you can pull out to help a person. That kind of learning is almost better done in a group setting, because they have each other to learn from as well. Okay, I'm looking at our time. I want to save time for questions and your comments and anything that you're wondering about packages and what you want to ask. So the floor is yours. Tell me what you came here for this evening, and let's make sure I've answered it for you.
Gretchen, can you just really quickly repeat the questions you used again in the core competency guidelines, just those really succinct questions for the beginning frame, the midpoint, and the end, I missed the 2 in the end.
What are you going to commit to between now and our next session? And what's your takeaway? Those are the 2 at the end. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, what was the last one? What are you going to commit to between now and our next session?
Yeah, from
Okay.
everything you've learned today, what are you going to commit to between now and our next session? Did I get it for you, Layla? I can't see your face, so I don't know if I've answered for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Who else? What is this sparking? What's coming through? Maybe what are you realizing or wanting to try out? Mark.
Okay, thank you for that. I do 2 things with my clients. I take notes. I tell them, that's fine. You need to talk. You don't need to write anything down. In a day or 2, you'll get all the stuff. So they can focus on being coached rather than having to write down, okay, I got this SMART goal, I got that SMART goal. And I believe that's a value to them. The other thing I tell them is, I'm kind of decent at research, so I'll do that for you if you're struggling with something. Or as an example, the free gift I gave to a client recently who's running his own business and started a new line, a business line of handyman services. I could tell he was totally confused on the money.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what the revenue was. He knew what he had to give to the franchise. He knew what this. Well, I used to be a whiz at Excel. I'm not so good anymore, but I'm still good at it. So I created 6 different scenarios of revenue so he could see what needs to come in and what he needs to get from his business. It took me about a half hour, but that was my free gift to him.
That's great. And how did he like that?
I haven't got the feedback yet. I haven't had it.
Okay,
I'll talk to him tomorrow.
okay, perfect.
And he's
You know-
part of my networking group. So, it was my benefit to build value for him so he could pass that along to other people in our group.
That's what I was thinking is what a great way to stand out and to give something a little bit different, right? Because he's not expecting that. And so these are the things that we're looking for. Now, one thing that you said about the note taking, I take basic notes, but they're not notes that I'm going to share with my clients. I ask my clients to take their own notes for their own learning, unless we're brainstorming. Brainstorming, they want to do fast. Those ones I will jot down, but it's important for them, as far as I'm concerned, to do that for their own responsibility. And I don't want to get into the role of like being the scribe. What if I miss something that felt important to them? But Mark, for you, if that works and it feels like high value, do it.
No, it's been working fine. And I start out with their goals just so that it's in front of them every time we meet, and just what happened during this session and what they committed to do. So I give them homework. Or I document what homework they said they were going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Who else? What else is coming through? Yeah.
You know, so it was really interesting when I was working with someone, just about like holding them accountable and the high value. I actually had this client tell me that I should hold her accountable more than I was. It was very interesting to me because she said, you know, and you guys, full disclosure, Gretchen knows this because I'm not even certified yet.
But
So
you're a darn good coach and you're right there to be certified. So
well, thank you. But I was working with one of my practice clients and she said, Hope, if I was paying you, I would expect you to hold me really accountable for what I've said I've committed to. And I sort of was a little taken aback and I didn't understand how to answer that exactly. And so just delivering a high value coaching package, I mean, what would you say to that?
okay, so this is a great question. This is one of those that during the agreements, we go over what coaching is and what coaching isn't. I also have an agreement about accountability, that I'm not here to be your accountability partner, that we're going to talk about how are you going to hold yourself accountable. And while at the beginning of our next session, I'm going to ask you, how did it go with whatever your commitment was? It's up to you to hold yourself accountable. Because I want to empower the client. If they're only doing it because I'm expecting it, that's never going to be the right reason for them to have lasting results. We have to figure out the motivation most of the time within the session as to why they are unable to have that level of accountability to them. Why are they the ones that aren't important enough to do it for? Why do they need to do it for me?
I love that. Thank you. Thank
You're
you. I was just like, what? You know, it was just kind of shocking when she said that to me.
Well, it's also that people don't really get what coaching is. And some coaches, they do this thing with accountability that it's like, and I'm going to hold you accountable and I'm going to check in and you're doing the client's job. You're taking away their power. Why are you going to check? They're the ones that have to do it. You're not going to do it. So I'm really clear with that up front. That's part of my agreements. Yeah. One more before we do some takeaways. What'd you get from tonight?
Just,
Thing, oh,
no, you go.
one thing that came up for me, there was a point at which you said something about what's your description of transformation. And I thought that you were going somewhere else with it. I thought that you were going to asking us, like, what is it? I thought it was a question connected to like, what is our offering? But really it's working with the client, whether it's group or individual, and find out what is their description of transformation. But it did make me think of one of the one of my superpowers. I have something that I call my superpower, And there's also a thing that I want my clients to walk away from me at their each interaction, whether they ask for it or not. And I think that that is also adds value to the program and the package.
There you
That if
go.
I know that there are things that I bring that other coaches may not, like there are things that are tied to my personality that can't be replicated.
That's it.
And I think that adds value.
Well, I'm glad that you said that. So each of us is just a little bit different. The way that I show up is going to be different than the way that you show up, but we can all show up really professional and we can deliver. Your clients come to you because of what you have and who you are and the way that you hold yourself. So we're all going to have different value and all of it is high. Never try to be someone else in this coaching game. Create the programs that would excite you. If you wouldn't go to it, no one's going to sign up for it. That's just the truth. I've done all sorts of things just because I knew they would make money. They fall flat on their face because they're not good and I wouldn't go to them. So if it doesn't excite you, it is not going to excite this person that you are hoping is going to sign up. Okay, this was a great session. For some of you, you've already joined Stairway to Six. Some of you have already been through Stairway to Six. And for those of you who want information on it, Olivia's going to drop the link. If you are interested, you can let me know and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But it's going to be a program over 3 months with a kickoff day in March, 3 accelerator days in April, and then a closeout in May, where we really focus on you getting the ins and outs of everything you need to have a successful business from the business standpoint. And we have a lot of great guest speakers that are coming in to talk as well. So again, if you're interested in that, do let me know and I'm happy to talk to you about it. We're going to end right on time. Happy February, everyone. Be chatty in the Coaching for Coaches Facebook group. Hey, Olivia, can you drop that link too, just in case some people aren't a part of it yet? They can go ahead and
Yeah.
become a part of it.
Absolutely.
It's a great place for all of you coaches to support one another. You know, it's a thriving group and I think there's close to 800 members or something. There are
Almost,
there are so many people that know so much in there. So if you don't know something and you have a question, you can definitely ask it. And there are just many, many resources. So please join and I will see you again in what month? Well, March. I'll see you again in March.
Thank you so much. So much
Thanks,
value.
everybody.
Oh, you guys are welcome. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Take care.